Hello, and welcome to Movies You Missed. This is episode 9.
999.
I'm V.
I'm John.
And we are here to discuss and recommend Westerns this week.
My least favorite genre of cinema.
I know, but I am so grateful that you saddled up and watched these movies anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, oddly enough, one of them, my pick, is actually my favorite Western, and I have seen yours, but it's been several years, so I looked forward to watching yours and mine again, because I watch mine, I would say, once every year. It's one of those movies that I really like to sink my teeth into, and I hope people will enjoy it as well.
And my pick is my favorite Western.
There you go. I'm excited to get on this one. I really am, because I really liked watching both of them, and I essentially watched them back to back, so I had a Sunday afternoon where I was definitely feeling like a gunslinger for a minute or two.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed both these movies. I know this isn't your favorite genre, similar to horror is not my favorite, but
yes,
you're a big fan of horror, I'm a big fan of Westerns, and so hopefully we can expand our comfort zones through this podcast a little bit.
I like that. I think this is a good way of looking at it, especially because some of the movies that you have recommended I haven't seen in a long time, and I couldn't really remember if I truly was a fan or not. Mm-hmm. And with your pick this week, I actually very much am a fan of. So I look forward to getting into a deep discussion about it with you.
Nice. Well, I am excited for it too. Like I said, it is my all-time favorite Western. And so, since we're on episode 9, we are going to get into your all-time favorite Western first. You want to kick us off?
I do indeed. I chose the 1992 Best Picture winner, Unforgiven, starring Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman, and Frances Fisher. Set in Big Whiskey, Wyoming. It is about a retired gunslinger that has left the game. He met a woman that cured him of whiskey and violence. He has 2 children that he is raising on his own after his wife has unfortunately perished from smallpox. We learn very early on that he is about to get thrust back into being a gunslinger because the movie begins with a prostitute get slashed up in the town of Big Whiskey, and a bounty has been put out on this man that has assaulted this woman by this woman's colleagues. So essentially, a group of women have banded together and put all of their earnings together to put this bounty out on this guy. And word gets out that this guy needs to go. So this man, William Money, played by Clint Eastwood, is, like we mentioned before, he's a retired gunslinger assassin. He is then met by a young gentleman named the Schofield Kid. He shows up at his ranch, and he starts kind of throwing accusations out at William Money in front of his kids, which William Money does not seem to like. Schofield Kid has heard nothing but stories of William Money being the rootinest, tootinest assassin in the West. And I've only ever heard rootinest, tootinest when it comes to Toy Story. And I'll be honest with you, I have not heard rootinest, tootinest in a lot of the Westerns that I've watched. And I've watched a handful of Westerns. He comes in on horseback. You're the rootinest, tootinest assassin I've ever heard of. You're some bad son of a bitch. And William Money's like, now hold on, mister. Stop talking right now. And he's like telling his kids to go, take care of the pigs that might have some kind of sickness. So he's like, hey, kids, go ahead and take care of these while I talk to this fine gentleman. He doesn't want his kids to hear anything about his past regarding his whiskey drinking and his assassinations. So William Money brings the Schofield Kid into his house, pours him some drink. Not alcoholic because he's no longer drinking, and he starts finding out that the Schofield Kid is a nephew of an old friend of his. And the Schofield Kid drops this whole thing on William Money that there's this woman's been slashed up in the town of Big Whiskey. A whole bunch of women, again, have banded together with their earnings, and they have put a $1,000 bounty out on the guy that has assaulted this woman. One of the main reasons why this bounty has been thrust out there into the world by these women that have banded together is because Little Bill, played by Gene Hackman, who is a ruthless, brutal man of the law in Big Whiskey, has decided that he's not really going to do anything to arrest this man. He's not going to really do anything to help these women out. So this guy is a horse rancher, and Little Bill orders him to bring 5 ponies forward to these women as recompense. And that does not sit well with the head lady, who is played by Frances Fisher. Now, Frances Fisher, some of you guys might recognize from Titanic. She plays Kate Winslet's mom. Very fantastic actress. She has been in several movies other than this in Titanic. We had the wonderful pleasure of working with her on a film several years ago, and it was actually right around the time Titanic was being re-released in 3D. So I asked her a bunch of questions as I was signing her out on her final day about Titanic, and she did nothing but answer them, and she was just very, very sweet. So to see her be a character like this who really wants justice, and she is not keeping quiet about it is really awesome, because there's so much fire and ferocity coming from, you can see like the gut of her to really bring justice to this young lady that has been cut up. So this movie is also, I would say, a play on the game Telephone. Now, if those of you remember the game Telephone, you would sit in a circle of folks, maybe 5 to 10 people, and you would whisper something to the person to your left. That person would then whisper, then that person would then, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in this movie, we see the assault. We see that this woman gets slashed up. She gets slashed up mostly on her face. When the Schofield kid shows up to William Money's house, apparently this woman has had her nose, her ears, and her breasts sliced off. That didn't happen. However, I feel like there's just got to be some way to really make it sellable to an assassin, other than, just some prostitute got slashed. Who's going to do anything about it? Mm-hmm. So William Money loses his wife. We find out that he really loved his wife. He's very adamant with the Schofield kid that he's over whiskey, he's over violence. He's not going to do it. Schofield kid keeps poking at him. It's $1,000. We can split this, $500 each. You can continue with your pigs. You can really help your children out with this money. $500 to William Money sounds nice and tasty, and I imagine it would sound tasty to anybody. $500 now, give me $500. I'll do something for you. Maybe I won't go kill somebody, but I'll do something for you. So William Money thinks on it for a little bit. He then decides that he's going to go and help out the Schofield kid. Schofield kid takes off, tells him he's going out west up through Wyoming to get to Big Whiskey. What William Money does is he goes and finds his very good buddy, who he was an assassin with, who's played by Morgan Freeman.
And by that time, the woman has been also blinded. Do you remember when Clint Eastwood tells Morgan Freeman what happened, and it's even worse?
Right, yeah. So see, that's what I'm saying.
More and more elaborate every time this story is told, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, the game Telephone, it always changes. Absolutely. And like you said, it gets more dramatic, it gets worse, it gets more violent, etc.
And I can tell you that $500 in 1880 is $14,000 today.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which would be really great. I mean, that was really the thing that started to, I think, really start to tip him into being enticed about this job, because at the very beginning of the movie, as you mentioned, those pigs are really sick. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's just scraping by.
Definitely, yeah. His house is not built very well. Yeah, he's definitely got some land, but he's not doing much with it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like you said, I think that's exactly why he took it. So he goes to Ned Logan, who is played by Morgan Freeman. Like you said, the story has gotten worse, and Ned is also on the straight edge, quote unquote, lifestyle now. He's married, he's not drinking anymore, and then, in the midst of all of it, Ned ends up joining William Money for this bounty. Everything works out, the three of them band together, they start making their way to Big Whiskey. Now, Unforgiven is written by David Webb Peoples. David Webb Peoples was very large back in the late 80s, early 90s. He wrote Blade Runner. And years later, he wrote a movie with his wife, which you and I have talked about several times on this podcast. He wrote the Terry Gilliam-directed 12 Monkeys. And I love 12 Monkeys, and that's going to be talked about when we do movies like that. Maybe you'll do Outbreak, and I'll do 12 Monkeys. See what goes on. So as we follow William Money, Ned, and the Schofield kid, we are taken back to Big Whiskey, and there's a sequence that I feel really starts to bring a little bit more of the terror of Little Bill. It's when this character English Bob shows up. And English Bob is also a bit of an assassin himself from back in the day. He's kind of traveling through. He's got a biographer with him. And as you enter Big Whiskey, there's a sign that says surrender all weapons. English Bob decides not to do that. So English Bob goes into the saloon and starts gambling, doing this, that, and the other. And as he's leaving, there's Little Bill with his entire posse of sheriffs. And English Bob's expression and demeanor changes immediately. And the tension that is built up in that 10-minute scene of pure dialogue is one of my favorite sequences of all of Unforgiven, because it really shows you the fact that Little Bill is a fucking prick. You very clearly can see that English Bob was not planning on running into Little Bill again in life. And he unfortunately does. So there's that whole sequence that I really like, the dialogue between both of them, and the way that Little Bill, Gene Hackman, is just kind of berating him about, like, why didn't you turn in your guns? Why didn't you do this? What do you think you're doing in my town? I just think it's really great, and it's one of the few tension-building scenes between both of those characters. And English Bob is played by Richard Harris, that had been around for years and years. He was in Gladiator, he was in Camelot, he was in the very, very unfortunate remake of The Count of Monte Cristo, which was an atrocious film.
Hey!
Oh, did you like that movie?
I love that movie. It's a great revenge story.
It's a great revenge story. The book is far better, and the movie with Guy Pearce and Jim Caviezel, they completely 180 everything. And
yes.
It's not good.
A big difference from the book, that's true.
And I respect that you like it, but I do not. So, again, that's Unforgiven is a very simple story. And it's really from the time that English Bob shows up, that's when the tension begins, because it doesn't really let up from there. And that's another thing that I really like about Unforgiven is the first time I watched it, I was on the edge of my seat right in that few minutes after English Bob leaves the saloon. I was like, ooh, okay. There's layers to this movie and layers to English Bob and Little Bill. I think it's a great film. I think it's shot very fantastically. The cinematography is beautiful. There's several shots that are very wide shots that remind me of old-time Western novel covers, like the purple and pink skies with the silhouettes of horses and the cowboys and all this stuff. And I don't know. I really like Unforgiven as a film. I really respect it. I really respect that it is, according to the National Film Registry, it's culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant as a Western film. And Clint Eastwood, again, directed it, and it won Best Picture, Director, Best Supporting Actor for Gene Hackman, and it won Best Editing as well at the Academy Awards that year. And the soundtrack is another thing that I really like. It's very simple. It's not like orchestral and massively big and booming in your ears. It's just enough. It's so silent in the tension building sequences with Gene Hackman and English Bob that I really love. And I really like, I am glued to the screen every time Gene Hackman's on screen because he's just so menacing.
He's amazing. I love him as an actor in general. And he was a good bad guy in a Western in The Quick and the Dead. And
I've never seen that.
Oh, it's a Leo movie, early Leo movie.
I was going to say, DiCaprio's in that one, yeah.
Yes, Sharon Stone and actually Russell Crowe's in it too. Speaking of Gladiator.
No way, really? Mm-hmm. Sharon Stone?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I like that Clint Eastwood has these characters' stories develop over time. These are complex characters because when Little Bill's building his house, I have a lot of empathy for the guy. I like Little Bill, right? But he's also
that's the thing. Yeah,
horrible dude in a lot of ways.
You hate to love him. Mm-hmm. You really do. Because and that's a great point. Thank you. I was going to bring up the house building sequence only because I really love how Little Bill plucks English Bob's biographer to write his biography.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite sequences. And it's after he arrests English Bob, after pummeling him almost to death in front of the entire town, which I actually think is a great scene. I think it's edited fantastically. And the way that Eastwood shoots Hackman beating on people, I think is fucking brilliant because in all seriousness, I mean, I have the 4K of Unforgiven now, and it is so crisp and clean and beautiful to look at that I feel like he's fucking beating me up. I feel like he's kicking me in the face. It's really intense. Like again, it's just a beautiful movie to look at. Regardless if you like the story, I would say if anybody's watched Unforgiven in the past and be like, I didn't really like it, give it another shot and watch how it's shot and watch how it's put together because it really is aesthetically pleasing. It's beautiful to look at, and the acting is really just fucking phenomenal. And another thing about Unforgiven and Gene Hackman actually was that Gene Hackman was given this script 20 years prior to the movie going into production, and Gene Hackman turned it down. Yeah, he did not want to do the movie until Clint Eastwood got a hold of it and convinced Gene Hackman to read the script again. And now we have Little Bill, Gene Hackman, Best Supporting Actor winner.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know
Isn't that so crazy? I love that.
Well, I didn't know the script had been floating around for that long. That's really interesting.
Yeah, David Peoples had it written 20 years prior, and he was optioning it around, and it just did not get made. Gene Hackman read it, didn't like it. At one point or another, Francis Ford Coppola was attached to direct it, with John Malkovich as playing William Money. And
gosh.
John Malkovich, he said after the movie won Best Picture and Eastwood won Best Director, that he was like, if I was in that movie and Francis Ford Coppola, nothing against Francis Ford Coppola, was directing, I would just be acting schmacting. I wouldn't be encompassing the kind of cowboy gunslinger that Clint Eastwood was able to. And I don't think he said that because Eastwood was famous for Westerns. There's just something about Eastwood that even before he started in Westerns, you look at him, you're like, what a rugged looking son of a bitch.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And oh, by the way, he just turned 92.
Yeah, he did.
Clint Eastwood. So happy belated birthday to Mr. Clint Eastwood, the man of Westerns after John Wayne, apparently.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, he's still around and being a badass, and I love his films. I'm was introduced to his westerns at a very young age, and then also have really been a fan of his directing. I think he makes exceptional movies, and
I agree.
I've heard a lot of really interesting stories about the way he directs his movies, and because he learned a lot through the spaghetti westerns he made, he doesn't yell action because it would spook the horses.
Right.
So instead, there's a lot of stories about how he directs, and he'll, when he wants to get things rolling, he'll be like, all right, now go ahead. And just like very subtly. And I think that's the way his movies are in general. I mean, this is a very slow burn movie.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But as an adult watching it, really enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Because when I was a lot younger, I thought this movie was so boring. Oh my God. I thought this movie was so boring. And now watching it as an adult, I'm like, no, this is put together so wonderfully. This is a badass movie.
Yeah, and speaking on Clint Eastwood's directing, I had adopted a little bit of his mannerisms after reading several interviews of different actors, most notably Morgan Freeman, this movie, $1 Million Baby, Hilary Swank, which I love $1 Million Baby. I don't know if anybody has seen $1 Million Baby or not. Excellent movie. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing that in theaters and just being completely blown away, and I hadn't seen Hilary Swank yet. By that point, I had not seen Boys Don't Cry.
Oh,
and,
okay.
So when I saw $1 Million Baby, I immediately became a Hilary Swank fan. Mm-hmm. And one of the last projects that I directed, which ended up kind of falling off and didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, I worked with a very talented actress. Her name's Kayla Fields. She's done a lot of Lifetime movies and most recently done a lot of commercial work. And I was directing her, and when it was time to roll, I would look at her and say, whenever you're ready. And
nice.
At the end of the day, she was just like, why do you say whenever you're ready instead of action? I said, well, I picked that up from Clint Eastwood, because when the cameras are rolling, that means everybody behind the camera has done their job and their time is spent. Now, whenever you're ready means you're in front of the camera and it's on your time. And she really liked that. And instead of yelling cut, I would say that does it, or that'll about do it, which is something that Clint Eastwood always says, according to a friend of mine, Ashley, who worked on The Mule with him several years ago. She was like, yeah, I was on set with him, and it would either be whenever you're ready or all right, we can go. And at cut was that'll do it, or all right, well, let's move on. And he's known for doing 1 to 3 takes tops. And having 10-hour days on set and having no cell phones. So
I love it. That sounds like my ideal set. Oh my 100%. Gosh.
I will tell you, when I worked with Jamie Lee Curtis on Scream Queen Season 2, she was another director that demanded no cell phones be out during any day that she was directing. And she directed 8 days of an episode. And she was an absolute joy to work with as a director, even as an actress. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, anything you see her in, I'm going to tell you right now, Jamie Lee Curtis fucking loves what she does. Loves it. Whenever we are setting up a shot, she's running around clapping her hands, just like coming up to crew members and just dancing up on them and going, come on, when are we going to shoot? I want to shoot. Let's shoot. Let's shoot. Let's shoot. And going off the track a little bit, Jamie Lee Curtis.
I love it. This is amazing. Keep going.
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis actually was one of the first people to tell me to propose to my wife. And I remember telling Jamie Lee Curtis about her, showing her pictures, and she looked at me, she goes, what's my favorite thing to say on set? I go, let's shoot. She looks at me, she grabs my shoulder, she shakes me, she goes, let's shoot. Get on one knee, pop the question. And I was like, all right, Jamie, I'll do it. Several weeks later, I brought Amy to the set. I had not yet proposed, but Jamie Lee Curtis pulled her aside, my now wife, and Amy still will not tell me what Jamie Lee Curtis said to her. But they spent like 5-10 minutes where Jamie Lee Curtis was holding her hand and just kind of like petting her and patting her and just like eye contact. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is a wonderful human being. And that's not what we're here to talk about, but I just wanted to get that out there because she was a great director. She was a great person to work with. And that's all I ever hear about Clint Eastwood is that he's not an asshole. He loves what he does. He is there for the craft. He's there for everybody else other than himself. And he just wants to make a good movie. And lo and behold, most Clint Eastwood movies are fucking fantastic.
Great. Yeah, Mystic River.
Oh, Mystic River, yeah. And
So
actually,
good.
another one of my favorite westerns is a Clint Eastwood movie. It's called Pale Rider, and I watched that.
That's a great
I
movie.
think the day after I watched Unforgiven for the first time, and I just was like, hell yeah, this is a great fucking movie.
Well, and his Dirty Harry movies are awesome.
Haven't seen them.
Oh, shit. Okay, well.
Haven't seen that. Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars. I have not seen the staples of Clint Eastwood westerns.
Oh, man, the Deadpool. Great Dirty Harry movie. There's a bit. Oh, Jim Carrey plays this bit part, stoned out rocker. Oh, gosh, that movie's great. Yeah.
Oh, I got to check that one out.
Absolutely.
So going back into Unforgiven, a little bit about the pre-production. It took 32 days to build the entire town of Big Whiskey. They had a 43-day shooting schedule, and they wrapped in 39 days.
Nice.
They wrapped 4 days early, which is, for any crew member...
Again, a fucking dream.
It is a dream
I
and
will reiterate
unheard
that.
of.
And unheard
Yeah.
of. Oh, my gosh. Because
Under schedule.
Yeah, that's unheard of. And also because, in the film industry, as we both can share, it is absolutely hurry up and wait.
Yep.
Because how many shoots have you and I been on where we're 2 hours into the first day and we're like 3 days behind schedule already?
Yeah, exactly.
That's usually how it
Insane.
goes.
And that's the other thing too. Yeah, as a second AD and a first AD, as what I did previously, it really is just like it puts a large smile on my face because most days that we would be shooting anything that I was on, if we had like 3 or 4 hours remaining in the day after getting the call sheet done, we'd wrap up and go home. And it's like, well, hang on a second. We have time to add 2 or 3 scenes. We're in this location.
We're
we
all
have
set
scenes.
up.
Yeah, and you guys want to go to 2 other locations in the next 3 days and then come back to this one? Let's try and knock this shit out now.
Yeah.
And then I would, we either ask the crew, like, are you guys okay with going a little bit over if we second meal it, this, that, and the other? And most of the time, the crew would be fine with it. And it may be a little bit longer than 4 hours. We might be an extra 6 to stretch it to a maybe 18-hour day. However, that means less work in the future. And not everybody likes to do that. And I can understand why in certain areas, certain films, certain projects. I feel like a movie like Unforgiven is exactly what happened. Clint Eastwood got what he needed in certain scenes in certain locations, and they were going to revisit those locations. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but this is all that I can take of based off experience, that they were ahead where they could stay where they are. Cameras are set up. All they got to do is maybe move the dolly track a little bit, move the camera, go handheld, whatever.
Or change one costume.
Or change costumes. Exactly. Yeah. And, maybe an actor's off that day, but they're really close by, and we be like, hey, we're going to bring you in today.
Yeah.
To knock this scene out. It'll take 1 day off of your day out of days, and 95% of the time cast is fine with it.
Oh, yeah,
So-
that's absolutely how you shave days off. I mean, I think that your theory is absolutely sound because that is absolutely how you shave days off a shooting schedule.
Yeah, exactly. So I really liked to find out that the efficiency not only is seen in the finished product, the efficiency was behind the scenes as well. And I actually have not watched the 4 documentaries that came with my 4K because this is another movie that I want to just live in the movie. I don't want to see how it was made. I've said this about Christopher Nolan's movies.
Yes.
I don't watch the making of special features. I like to be immersed completely and not really know how they did it. So Unforgiven came out in August of 1992. August 7th was its release date. It had a budget of $14.5 million. The box office gross was $101 million.
Nice.
It was number 1 for 3 weeks. Opening weekend, it was number 1. Number 2 was a Robert Zemeckis directed film that I love. I'm sure you like it too. Bruce Willis, Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn.
Death Becomes Her?
Yes.
Nice.
That was number 2. Number 4 was 3 Ninjas.
Oh, God.
Remember Three Ninjas?
Yeah, oh my God, I used to watch that a ton when I was a kid.
So good.
So
and number
terrible,
5,
so good.
Yeah, exactly. Number 5 for that week was A League of Their Own.
Oh, yes.
Another great movie.
Fantastic movie.
Tom Hanks, Madonna, Gina Davis. I think
I love Gina
John
Davis.
Lovitz is in that movie. He plays the recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing, this little tidbit I find extremely fascinating because we have touched on this before, and it goes along the lines of movies lasting in theaters. 1992. So V and I discussed a little while back how movies do not last in theaters anymore, and that's because of the fucking streaming services that like HBO Max and Paramount and Peacock, after like a week or two of theatrical release, they're on streaming. So people are like, I'll just watch it at home.
Well, like The Northman, that just came out on Peacock.
It did. Yeah, so August 7th, this movie was released. How long do you think it stayed in theaters?
August 7th? I would say, was it in theaters until November?
Oh, it was in theaters until November. It was also in theaters past November.
Oh, Jesus.
Unforgiven was taken out of theaters July of 1993.
Oh, my God.
Unforgiven lasted almost an entire year in the theater.
I wonder if it's because they left it in the theaters to keep up interest for the Oscars, and then when it won, probably to keep it in after the Oscars, which is usually around February.
Agreed.
Because after the Oscars, people are going to be interested in going to see it again or for the first time.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I love that about certain movies that win. Won Best Picture, let's re-release it, or let's keep it in theaters. So, I mean, that's where your $101 million comes from out of a $14.5 million budget. Insane. Over almost a full year in theaters. That's just amazing.
And I love how, and we're gonna start talking about this in our episodes coming up. I love how films are starting to be re-released through like fandom events.
Yes.
So The Thing is going to be released for its 40th annivery in a couple weeks, and I'm pumped to see that in theaters.
Which is interesting because you don't like horror movies.
Yeah, that's true. It's just such a fantastic film, and
it is.
It's Kurt Russell.
Yeah, no, The Thing is bitchin'. I've only seen it one time, so I'm actually really excited to go see it in theaters.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
we'll have to go on the same day. We'll have to figure it out a way to go on the same day.
Absolutely. And maybe that should be a horror episode where I pick The Thing, and then people have an opportunity.
Creature horror.
Yeah, and then people have an opportunity to see it either at home or in the theaters because it'll be back.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, so Unforgiven, again, that's my favorite Western, and I have not seen many Westerns, so it may fall off after I see some more in the future, but it is my favorite. Again, put together very well. The music's great, cinematography is gorgeous, the acting is fantastic. One thing I like to do on the show that I wonder if our listeners look forward to now is having V guess what the highest grossing film of 1992 was. Do you think you can get it? Your hint is a comic book movie.
Comic book movie in 92. Mm-hmm. Well, the nice thing is, unlike nowadays, the 90s were very slim pickings for comic book movies.
Weren't they ever?
Really only one superhero that did well enough to be a #1 movie of the year. So I am going to guess that it was the amazing, which we've already referenced because of Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes, we have.
The amazing Batman Returns.
You are correct. Directed by Tim Burton, written by Sam Hamm, who wrote Monkey Bone in our previous episode.
We talked about too. That's right.
Yes, we did.
Right. Yeah, that's a great movie, and she is the best Catwoman in my opinion.
So good.
So good.
So wonderful.
Yeah. Nothing against Zoe Kravitz. She was badass in the Batman, but Michelle
I still need
Pfeiffer,
to watch.
What?
I still need to watch the Batman.
Dude, get on
the
HBO.
With the movies that we watch for our episodes, I usually tend to watch them closer to our recording day. So I think I'm going to try and start doing, watching one or two of our movies before the weekend. So on the weekend, I can actually get into some of the movies that I've been wanting to watch. And the Batman has been, staring me in the face. Robert Pattinson with his little dark eyes, he's like, watch me. And I'm like, all right, Robert, I will.
And speaking of HBO, that's actually where you can watch your movie right now. That's how I watched it.
Absolutely, yes. Unforgiven is available on HBO Max, and I recommend if anybody is a fan of Westerns, even for 5 minutes, just give it a shot. And like we said, it's a slow burn, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's over 2 hours. It picks up, but it's still... It's strange because it does pick up, but it's still got that pacing to it that you're just that's another thing that I really liked about it, the pacing. I guess, other than the way it's shot and the way it's edited, the pacing of everything is done so well, and it's done...
consistently, I think.
Very consistently. Yeah, no, thank you. I was looking for the word. So number 1 was Batman Returns. Can you guess number 2? It is a series of movies that very likely we will get a 5th one of soon.
fifth one
And that's your hint.
from the 90s.
I don't know if he directed this one, but I know Richard Donner was involved with at least the first one.
It's not Lethal Weapon, is it?
Which one?
Let's see. When did Rene Russo join? 92?
Number 4.
No, Rene Russo joined in Lethal Weapon 3, which is the best.
Did she really?
Which is the best of the series, by the way.
Well, then you just got it.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if Lethal Weapon 2 had come out in 92 or if it
I
was
thought
earlier.
Rene Russo joined in with Joe Pesci in number 4.
No, because Joe Pesci's in 2.
I have
2
no
is
knowledge
crap.
on Lethal Weapons then,
Horrible.
apparently.
Number 3, Rene Russo joined in. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is the best of the series. Number 4, Chris Rock joined in.
Oh, that's right. Chris Rock jumped in on number 4.
Yeah.
But Joe Pesci was back in, and so was Rene Russo.
Oh,
right?
yeah. They stayed
Okay,
through the rest of the series. There is going to be a number 5? What?
There's been talks. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover have been quoted on saying they really are.
But they really are too old for this shit.
At this point, I imagine they would be. Yeah, so you never know. It could be it could be similar to Top Gun Maverick, where there's younger recruits that they're trying to train.
But Mel Gibson is not aging like Tom Cruise.
No, he's not. No, I'll give you that. I think the last I saw Danny Glover was in Sorry to Bother You. If you haven't seen Sorry to Bother You, that one is
okay.
That is a fucking fascinating movie.
But I will say, kids, this is why cigarettes and alcohol are bad. Look at Mel Gibson and how he's aging, and then look at Tom Cruise.
That's a good way to put it. Excuse me.
Oh, man. Yes, I agree. I think this movie's great. It is a very slow burn, but still worth a watch. And my favorite quote in the movie is when Little Bill, Gene Hackman, says to English Bob, "Hell, I even thought I was dead. Turns out I was just in Nebraska."
Yes. One thing I wanted to mention was that the autobiography that English Bob's biographer is writing is called The Duke of Death. And Little Bill, he hates English Bob so much that he keeps calling it the Duck of Death.
Yes.
And I just, every time he's like, "Oh, the Duck of Death, huh?" He's like, "Actually, sir, it's the Duke of Death." He says, "Duck of Death, huh?" And all right, Little Bill, it's the Duck of Death, man. Whatever you want, just don't fucking shoot me. There's definitely some movies of 1992 in the top 100 that are pretty great, and I just wanted to give you a few of them.
Please, because this is actually something that I've started to really enjoy.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Talking about the year of movies and reminding us and also our listeners the movies that came out that year that are really, really worth revisiting.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
and
feed it to me.
there's definitely a few that are worth revisiting. So after number 1 and 2, which was Batman Returns and Lethal Weapon 3, number 3 was the Whoopi Goldberg-led Sister Act, which is still a great movie, still holds up. Number 4 was, I think you and I agree on this, as the superior of the two, Home Alone 2: Lost in New York.
Yes, we do agree. It is superior.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Number 5, Wayne's World.
Oh my God. One of
1992.
your most quoted movies that has to
Yes.
be on your list at some point, right?
Oh, it definitely will be.
Great.
And then jumping ahead, going to number 8 was the Disney animated film Robin Williams-led Aladdin, which is still a wonderful movie from beginning to end. And even the sequels, I like Return of Jafar, and I really like The King of Thieves. I think they're both pretty great too.
Yeah, they're very fun.
Number 16, one of your favorites, Daniel Day-Lewis-led Last of the Mohicans.
Yes, it
Number
is.
18, coming in another Disney, Beauty and the Beast, which was also the first animated nominated Best Picture at the Oscars.
So you're telling me that Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast were released in the same year?
Yes, they were.
Whoa, I always thought they were a year or two apart.
As did I. I always thought that
gosh.
they were apart. But
Peak
actually,
Disney. Peak
yeah.
Disney right there.
My father, when I was living in Palmdale, was a movie reviewer for the local newspaper. And he got tickets to the El Capitan to go see Aladdin. So he took my sister and I and our cousin, who's actually my dad's cousin. His name's Robert, but he calls him Larry. It's a whole thing. So yeah, when we went to go see Aladdin, I think it was the first time I went to the El Capitan Theater, because they did a whole opening show with all the princesses coming out and like the organ player and all this shit. And I just remember being a kid, being up in the balcony watching Aladdin and just being completely enthralled with what was on screen. And Beauty and the Beast we saw at the Palmdale Boulevard movie theaters, where I saw Jurassic Park and where I saw most of my Dragonheart, which is coming up in a later episode. And then number 21, Steve Martin, Diane Keaton, Father of the Bride.
Nice.
Great movie. Number 33, Emilio Estevez led Mighty Ducks.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that movie as a kid.
Great movie.
Actually, that movie got me into hockey.
It holds up a little bit. Really?
As a Northern California kid, Mighty Ducks.
Cool.
Yeah, introduced me to Minnesota and hockey.
Oh, wow.
Still a big fan
today.
today.
That's right. It was like freezing where every time they were outside.
Yeah.
And you could always
It's cold all the time.
Number 38 was the Denzel Washington, Spike Lee, Malcolm X. And then number 39 was the Brendan Fraser, Sean Astin, Pauly Shore caper, Encino Man. For those that have not seen Encino Man, please do yourselves a favor and watch it. It is awesome. Number 56, Ferngully, The Last Rainforest, the first of the Avatar movies. And then Number 61 was Muppet Christmas Carol with Michael Caine as Ebenezer Scrooge, which, in my opinion, is one of the most fantastic renditions of Christmas Carol. The songs are just incredible.
And he was great in it.
Oh, so good. And actually, a cool little tidbit about Muppet Christmas Carol was that Michael Caine said to the director, which was a Henson, that he was going to do it like he would do it on stage. He was not going to be any kind of sugarcoating at all. He was going to be Scrooge, and boy, was he ever.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's why the movie was so good, is he took it seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And then number 97 is one of my favorite, very forgotten films that I'm likely going to throw on this. It's animated. It is called Rock-a-Doodle. And I know not many people have seen Rock-a-Doodle, but my friend Ashley watched it last year on her birthday, and I remember seeing her Instagram post and being like, "Are you watching Rock-a-Doodle?" She goes, "Fuck yeah, I'm watching Rock-a-Doodle." I'm like, "Oh, Chanticleer, Chanticleer." So if anybody's seen Rock-a-Doodle, there's your Chanticleer Rock-a-Doodle reference from 1992. And it still holds up. I'm going to say it right now. It probably doesn't, but yes, it does, because it's fucking awesome. It's about a rooster that wants to be a fucking rock and roll rooster, and it's great. It's great.
No, never seen it. Never seen it.
Do yourself a favor.
I'll hold off until you put it on the list.
I think it came out around the time like We're Back, a dinosaur story came out,
yeah.
and it's I think it was the same animation studio, so it's got that weird, like very similar animation to
off-brand Disney. Like if you order Disney on Wish.
right. And if you what is it? Fievel Goes West kind of animation,
dude,
stuff.
Don't group that in the same as Rock-a-Doodle. Fievel Goes West is a
well, you haven't seen Rock-a-Doodle, so you can't say anything yet.
Fievel Goes West is amazing.
Fievel Goes West is fucking awesome. Yeah. American Tail's great too, but Fievel Goes West is actually, I think, superior. Definitely. There we go.
Another superior
2 for 2
sequel. Yeah, I love it.
Indeed.
I need to ask my parents if they can remember, which granted they have a whole bushel of kids, so they might not remember, and that's fair. But I would love it if they remembered the first movie in theaters they ever took me to. I was thinking about this the other day, and I can't remember the first movie theater experience I ever had, and I would love it if I could be reminded of that if they can remember. One of mine, and I'll be honest, it's crazy. Honey, I Blew Up the Kid was also on this list. So my dad took my sister and I to see Aladdin with his tickets for writing reviews. He also took us to see Honey, I Blew Up the Kid at the El Capitan. And I will always remember this. Back when, you remember those little handheld recorders that people would record notes in instead of write them down? Oh, yeah. So my dad carried one of those around. When I was about 15, I ended up finding one of those little tapes. And I had one of those little recorders because I would always do fake radio shows in bed at night and sing and whatever. Academy Award speeches. Yes, of course. Actually, yes, I did. I absolutely did my Academy Award speeches if ever I were to have won one. Haven't we all? I think we all have, yeah. Grammys, Oscars, Kids' Choice Awards. So I remember pushing play on this tape that I found, and it is my dad asking me questions about Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. And it's after we had left the theater. So it's very noisy outside, and the El Capitan's on Hollywood Boulevard. 6. I was 6. Exactly. Yeah, I was about to be 7. So he goes, "John, what'd you think?" I'm like, "I want to see it again. Can we go right now?" He goes, "Well, no, we got to go home, but I can probably take you again to see it in the future. What'd you think of the movie?" I'm like, "I liked it. I want to see it again." So I will never forget hearing that. So yeah, little tidbit about my mind and thought process as a child. All right. Should we get to my pick next? Oh, I think we can wrap up Unforgiven now and jump into yours. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I picked a Western that came out the following year in 1993. This is, as I've said, my all-time favorite Western, helmed by Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer. This is Tombstone. Love this movie. It is very quotable. It is very classic. And so I love Kurt Russell, and he's actually one of the few child actor success stories, and he's my favorite child actor success story. He was contracted with Disney for 10 years when he was a kid.
No way.
Was even in a movie with Elvis Presley.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and some of my favorites of his are Stargate, Tango and Cash,
Oh, Stargate.
Overboard, Silkwood, The Thing, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of great movies. So Tombstone is the loosely based biopic of Wyatt Earp when he and his brothers move to Tombstone, Arizona, and what happens when they encounter this gang of ruthless criminals called the Cowboys,
Yes.
and the consequences of that clash.
Very much so, yeah. And watching Tombstone, this was the third time in my entire life that I've watched Tombstone. I watched Tombstone for the first time with my father when I was about 12, and my dad was just hopped up on how great it was. I hated Tombstone at the age of 12. So then fast forward a decade and a half later, when I was collecting VHSs, which I still kind of am, I found Tombstone at Amoeba for $1. And I was like, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to invite Dad over. We'll pour some whiskey. We'll watch Tombstone. We'll talk about it and see if I like it again. So my dad came over and poured us some whiskey, and we watched Tombstone, and I was glued from the get-go. Mm-hmm. And this time around, exact same thing. When you chose it, I was like, awesome, because I had been wanting to watch it again because it had just come back out on HBO Max. I remember watching it this time around and being like, that's Powers Booth. And my God, what a fucking bastard he is.
Yes. This movie has a fantastic cast, but opposite from your movie, the pacing is really intense. This movie grabs you from the get-go. The way they introduce the Cowboys in that very first scene where they kill basically a town's worth of people and a wedding. And then I love the way they introduce Wyatt Earp because he gets off the train and he stops someone from hitting a horse.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I loved it. And so this guy's whipping this horse with a rope, and Wyatt Earp grabs it out of his hand and smacks the guy with a rope. He's like, yeah, it hurts, don't it? And I was like, yes,
that's great.
This is awesome. Yeah, it is a violent movie, but it's not gory.
No, it's not.
Unlike some of the previous movies that we've picked. But it is a very intense and violent movie because it is lawmen versus a gang. And they also have epic mustaches in this movie.
Do they ever?
And they are all real. The director insisted that they all be real, which I thought was kind of
Those
cool.
are real?
Oh, yeah. All real.
Kurt Russell's was real? I knew Sam Elliott's absolutely was,
Well,
but I did not.
I think I've only ever seen him without a mustache once. Sam Elliott.
Same.
Yeah, no,
Wow,
it's
that's
all
actually
real.
really cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
All authentic costumes. The costumes in this are great.
Oh, you feel so hot watching that movie. They're all in black.
They're all in black wool. And
Ooh.
Val Kilmer had talked about how pissy people were filming a couple of the scenes, especially the indoor scenes, like at the theater.
Oh, sure.
And inside the bar, and like all that sweat is very real. And then like coming to blows and stuff was very easy for the actors to get into because being in wool in 100-degree heat, they were just all so pissed all the time.
Oh, wow. That's funny. It's interesting you mentioned the sweat. I remember right as they walk into it's when we're introduced to Doc Holliday, you can see it literally dripping off of him.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I see that, I'm like, oh, they did a take where hair and makeup came in and
spritz.
spritzed his hair. Yeah, because that's how it always is anywhere. Because also now everything, just about every set that you will walk on is air conditioned.
Yeah.
But no, it's I remember that very distinctly. Being like, man, it must be fucking hot out there.
Very hot. And so, just to get into the plot a little bit more, just in case, for the people who haven't seen this movie yet, Wyatt Earp and his brothers come into town. They clash with the gang called the Cowboys, led, as you said, by Powers Booth and Michael Biehn, who is the epic late 80s, early 90s villain. I love that guy so much. He's the bad guy in The Abyss, and he is amazing in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Lieutenant Coffee. Fuck, he's so good in that movie.
Man, that's right. Wow. I'm watching it, and I'm like, I know this guy.
Oh, yeah. He is the good guy in Aliens. He's Hicks.
Oh, shit.
Sigourney Weaver's love interest.
Oh, my gosh. I've
was
actually
so
only
great.
seen Aliens one time, so I'm very excited to watch it again.
Oh my god, one of my
have it on
all-time favorite
VHS.
sci-fi movies. That movie's so good, so
Yeah.
good. So yes, Michael Bihn's has done a lot of work. He's in Navy SEALs with a bunch of famous guys, including Bill Paxton. So Bill Paxton plays Wyatt Earp's brother Morgan in this movie. And Michael Biehn and Bill Paxton have been in 5 movies together, including this one. And this was the last movie they were in
Wow.
together, which I thought
No
was cool.
way.
They were also in Aliens together.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Game
Which
over, man.
Game over. I love that. So the brothers come to town. They clash. It also is where the very famous real-life duel in the OK Corral comes into play.
Right.
And it's just the consequences of these two groups of men encountering each other. And Val Kilmer very memorably and exceptionally plays Doc Holliday, who is Wyatt Earp's friend. He has this wonderful way of talking. His accent is amazing. He has this very syrupy, smooth dialogue. And I love right before the OK Corral fight where he shrugs off his coat. Such a badass move. He's so good in this movie.
I love when he's really, really shit-faced at one point. And the guy's like, man, you're so drunk you can't see straight. He goes, I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Yes.
That's my favorite line of Doc Holliday's for sure. It makes me laugh every time.
Oh, he has so many great lines and insults in this movie. My favorite is when he's talking to a young Billy Bob Thornton, actually, who's a bit part in this movie.
Right.
And he turns to me and he goes, oh, my apologies, Johnny. I forgot you were there. That's such a great insult. It's like,
And you're right. It is very syrupy smooth. His dialect is pretty awesome. Val Kilmer.
he was so good. And when
good
he
stuff.
and Michael Biehn plays this bad guy called Johnny Ringo, who is very, very deadly, very, very fast gunslinger. And they have this great battle of wits, actually, in a saloon. And I always think about the fact that the guns that they spin around in Westerns are pretty heavy guns. And I've handled 6-shooters and revolvers and older guns like that. And I can't imagine spinning them around and having a lot of control, because trying to do that with one, your pointer finger basically in the trigger guard. Oh gosh, I don't know how they did it, and they were really, really great at it in this scene and in a lot of Westerns. And I now as an adult looking at Westerns, I was like, how were they that fast? And how did they do these trick things with guns? I always thought that was really interesting.
I thought that as well, actually, watching that whole, because again, going back to like with Unforgiven, the authenticity of things is really, really prominent and felt. I mean, we all know it's Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer. However, they really do become these characters.
Absolutely. I really do agree with you. And Val Kilmer has said that Kurt Russell is the reason this movie came to be and was super successful, because in the very beginning of shooting, the first director was fired.
No way.
Yeah, and his name's Kevin Jarre. And he was the writer. He wrote the movie.
Oh, wow.
He also wrote Rambo 2, Glory, The Devil's Own, and
Oh my gosh.
one of our all-time favorites, he helped write The Mummy.
No way.
Yeah. So he's a great
my
writer,
gosh.
but apparently not the best director. So he got fired. And
Fascinating.
unfortunately, he died in 2011 at age 56. But he gave us some great stories. Kurt Russell, because he'd been in the industry so long, and because this was a passion project of his, he immediately jumped in and started storyboarding, writing up shooting schedules, making sure everybody was on time, making sure all the resources were there. So when the director George P. Cosmatos came along and was hired to finish the film, Kurt was right there, and they often talk about how Kurt Russell's kind of the uncredited director of this movie, and Val Kilmer has said in interviews that it's only because of Kurt that this movie came to be and actually was able to be finished, which I thought was really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So, speaking of Doc Holliday and Val Kilmer, the first actor to be considered for that role was Willem Dafoe.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that would have been a completely different Doc Holliday.
Completely different. But because of his role in The Last Temptation of Christ in 1988, which was very controversial, the studio refused to hire him.
No way.
And wouldn't put him in that movie. They would not put him in Tombstone. Yep.
That is so interesting, because Scorsese kept going.
Yeah.
Wow.
But at that point, I think, of course, Scorsese had a lot of his own production money, right? Or at least people he knew that would back him still.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe, I guess, was still one of those non-names at that time yet.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So Val Kilmer then got the job, did an incredible job at it, and he actually improvised the whistling on the way to the OK Corral fight, and then also the wink at the OK Corral.
Really?
Yes, he improvised that, and I thought that was such a great and fitting addition to the character he was playing.
Absolutely, yeah. He really embodied Doc Holliday very beautifully.
Absolutely.
Everybody is great in that movie, but the interesting thing about Tombstone is anytime I bring up Tombstone to anybody, all they can ever say is, "I'm your Huckleberry." And it's like, yeah, but there's so much more dialogue in that movie.
Oh, there's so many other great quotable lines.
And as quotable as "I'm your Huckleberry" is, and as significant as it is in that movie, I have always felt that there's more to Doc Holliday than just that.
Absolutely. And do you know what that saying means?
I actually do not, no.
So I looked this up because I was curious a couple years ago because, yes, I do quote that all the time as well.
Yeah.
So it's a reference to Huck Finn. And Huck Finn was Tom Sawyer's sidekick at that point. And basically the term means I'm the man for the job, which is very fitting for the scene because he's, volunteering for a fight in that moment for his friend. And so it definitely makes sense, but for because it's been lost in historical context, a lot of people don't know what it means.
Well, I do appreciate you telling me that, and I might be able to fill my father in on that one too. Tombstone is one of my dad's all-time favorite movies.
Because it's amazing.
It is. It's great.
So one little tidbit that I'd like to tell you about is the fact that I have actually visited both Doc Holliday's and Wyatt Earp's grave.
What?
Coincidentally.
Oh, wow.
So my sister was moving back from Denver, Colorado a few years ago, and I helped her move. And we drove back through Colorado. We stopped in the town that used to have that sanitarium that Doc Holliday went to, and we stopped and visited his grave. Well, I lived at the time in South San Francisco, and Wyatt Earp is buried in South San Francisco because the woman he ended up with was Jewish, and her family had family plots in this cemetery.
No way.
And he wanted to be buried next to her, and so I have now seen both of their graves.
That is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's really badass.
It was very cool. So
wow.
If you're in either of those areas, either outside of Colorado Springs or South San Francisco, you can visit their graves.
Very, very cool. That's actually pretty badass. If I do make my way to San Francisco again, I'm going to look for that. And in Colorado.
You should definitely tell your dad about it, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Wow. Yeah. That is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Yeah,
That's
it was fun. It was a fun experience for sure. And this movie, again, is very beautiful, similar to, I would say Unforgiven is more beautiful, let's be honest. It has more expansive shots. But some of the helicopter and crane shots when they are riding horses is so badass. And
hell yeah.
love that they're all riding horses themselves.
Yes. No, that was one thing that I was very happy to find out was that they didn't use stunt doubles when they were doing the run through the deserts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like you said, with Unforgiven having a little bit more of the typical Western, like novel cover shots, there's definitely some shots that are gorgeous in Tombstone. And actually, one of my most favorite shots, I wrote it down, is when Sam Elliott's character and Bill Paxton's character greet Kurt Russell. And it's a shot that starts inside, and it tracks with Bill Paxton and Sam Elliott into a doorway. And we watch them all shake hands and start to like talk a little bit, and then it cuts after a few minutes. I just love that shot because it made me feel like a spectator.
Yes, through the windows of the train station.
Yeah. Yes.
So cool.
Yes.
That was
Such
a great shot.
Fucking great shot. God
Yes.
damn. Oh, it's so simple, but it's just so sexy.
Yes. And that's funny because my favorite shot of the movie is the nighttime train station scene. And that's actually my favorite quote of the movie and one of my all-time favorite scenes in any Western. When Wyatt Earp intercepts the cowboys at night at the train station when his brothers are leaving. And he is so full of fury.
Oh, yeah.
And so righteous. And, it's one of my all-time favorite scenes in any Western.
He's holding that shotgun, right?
Oh, yeah, this giant double-barreled shotgun. And he's such a badass. And the fury that comes out of Kurt Russell is visceral. It is amazing. It is fantastic.
I can feel his spit as he says it when I was watching it. It was almost like I was in a 4D theater. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes.
No, yeah, there's a lot of ferociousness in that sequence. It's
so
fucking
good.
Yeah, he
So
sells
good.
it beautifully, definitely. And the cool thing about both of our movies, they were shot on 35 millimeter film, so they have that grainy, glow to them.
And I love the fact that both of these films are naturally lit.
Yes, I was curious about that with Tombstone. I knew Unforgiven was definitely naturally lit. Very little grip and electric setups going on.
Very little in Tombstone as well.
Oh, hell yeah. That's
So
the
good.
Kubrickian way.
Yes.
Shot by candlelight like Barry Lyndon. Like, that is just madness. If anybody's seen Barry Lyndon, there is no grip and electric setup. That is shot by candlelight.
Yeah, basically. Your budget is nice and low for that.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, that's the thing, too. Like, you think back in the day with Kubrick. I mean, even Tombstone Unforgiven, like, they shot very minimal light and electric and grip setups, and that's the other thing that makes it feel authentic. It's like, wow, they really struggled to get some of these darker shots. Even in the opening of Unforgiven, there's that panning shot in the town of it raining, and it's so dark in the middle of nowhere, and you're lit by lanterns and candles. That's it. That's all you got.
Well, and that might also help with shorter shoot schedules, right? Because you don't have to tear down all this shit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you
Which
shoot
is
your
cool.
day scenes, and then you spend a few hours at night doing your night scenes.
And that's it. Yeah, exactly. So now that we've talked a little bit about the scenery and the shooting, let's talk a little bit about the actors in this movie. I've mentioned a couple of them. Val Kilmer also. Joel Schumacher watched this movie and that is the reason Val Kilmer became Batman in your favorite Batman movie, Batman Forever.
I love Batman Forever.
I know you do.
I can't help it. It's Jim Carrey and it's Tommy Lee Jones, and I gotta be honest,
Tommy Lee Jones hates Jim Carrey.
Hated him, and it sucks because Jim Carrey only wanted to become friends with him.
I know,
but it's just like, oh man. But yeah,
Tommy Lee Jones is too serious for Jim Carrey.
He's a very serious man.
Yes.
And
other favorites that I have of Val Kilmer's, Heat, which is in an upcoming episode. Fantastic.
Which I have yet to see.
What? You've never seen it?
I've never seen Heat.
Oh my gosh.
That's Michael Mann, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Who makes
never seen it.
great movies.
Yes, except for Miami Vice.
Well, yeah. Good point. Fair point. But man, great heist movie. And it is on my list for this podcast. So excited to introduce you to it. And my all-time favorite Val Kilmer role is Willow.
Really?
Oh, I love that movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I was very underwhelmed with Willow. I only just recently saw it within the last 2 years.
Oh, I watched it when I was a kid. That's probably why I love it.
I understand. Yeah, I get you.
And they're making a series.
Yes, they are.
And Warwick Davis is reprising his role as Willow, which I thought was really interesting.
I'll be honest, I might give it a shot. I know my wife is a big fan of Willow, so that was why I watched it. I had no interest in it otherwise. And my wife was like, let's watch Willow. And I had found it on VHS, so we watched the VHS copy of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Some other people in this movie, Sam Elliott, as we talked about. I love him in A Star is Born and Roadhouse. I loved him in Roadhouse. And Bill Paxton, I know we've talked about him a lot, and we're big fans of his. And I wanted to tell you a story that I didn't know about until I had researched it a little bit. Do you know he died of complications after a valve replacement surgery?
No way.
Yeah, he died of a stroke after a heart valve replacement.
Oh, that's horrible. That's what I had done.
I know. And I have had a couple of surgeries on my valve, and I thought that was very sad and unfortunate and something that we could both really relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew that he had passed. I didn't do my research as to why, but wow, man, that's
Total bummer.
very
Good guy.
damn.
Some other actors in this movie, Michael Biehn, as we talked about, he is Kyle Reese in the original Terminator. He was great in that.
Yes.
Him and James Cameron, they partner really well together.
Yeah, they do.
He's also in The Rock and in an episode of The Mandalorian last year.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Watched it up to episode 5 and was done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Too slow burn for me to get to absolutely nowhere.
God. So Powers Booth leads the cowboy gang in this movie, as you mentioned. He was great in Sin City.
Oh, yeah.
He was great as Cy in Deadwood.
Never watched Deadwood.
Oh,
That was a Western show, so that was one I kind of steered away from.
Timothy Olyphant's in it. That's why I watched it.
Ian McShane, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
you should watch it just for Ian McShane. He's amazing in that show. And the cast of the cowboys in this movie is basically a who's who of up-and-coming
Absolutely.
actors.
Oh my gosh. It was literally like, oh my gosh, every time that the camera cut to a new person.
So, Jason Priestley, Thomas Hayden Church, Billy Bob Thornton, as we mentioned. Billy Zane is in this movie. John Corbett is in this movie. And Terry O'Quinn, who I think was great as he's the mayor in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I love him as Howard Hughes in the movie The Rocketeer. That's what I remember him from.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. It was a small part in that movie, but it really made an impact. I thought he was great.
Oh, yeah, The Rocketeer. I loved that movie as a kid. I had it on VHS, and I always thought Timothy Dalton was such an asshole in that movie.
Mm-hmm. So this movie you can actually watch on Amazon Prime for
Tombstone?
free. Yeah, it used to be on HBO. Unfortunately, it's left recently, but it is on Amazon Prime that you can watch for free.
Awesome. I watched my father's DVD copy.
I watched my DVD copy.
Hey,
doesn't happen often, but it
all
happens.
right. No, it does not. Is this the first time you've watched a DVD?
No, I watched Constantine because I have the 2-disc special edition of Constantine.
Gotcha. Cool.
But yeah, so those are our Westerns. We really enjoyed them, and I'm excited to continue to introduce John to more of this genre.
As am I. I look forward to some more gunslinging. Good stuff.
Now we are at the part of our show where we like to ask, John, would you watch Unforgiven with your grandma?
I don't think I would. I think she would be bored with it, to be honest with you. I think the pacing of it would throw her off, and she would likely start crocheting or playing her Yahtzee game.
It's not an overly violent movie, but it is very raw.
Very, yeah.
I think people who enjoy slow burns and tension building movies would enjoy this. Your friends who are mainly like action fans and stuff like that would probably be bored.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. It's marketed as a rip-roaring, intense, violent movie.
No.
And yeah, it's more dialogue driven than anything else.
Yes.
I think both of them are, actually.
In a lot of ways, I agree. I think the dialogue in Tombstone is pretty fantastic. I would have totally watched this with my grandma. She raised 4 boys who were hunters, and like I've mentioned before, she was a deputy sheriff. This is right up her alley. She'd be drinking whiskey while watching the guys on screen were drinking whiskey.
Hell yeah. I kind of did that with Doc Holliday. I tried to keep up with him.
No,
and
don't do that. That's a horrible drinking game. Don't do that.
I even texted you. I was like, I have to watch Tombstone. I got through half of it, and I texted V. I was like, I need to watch Tombstone when I'm not trying to keep up with Doc Holliday. He's a bad influence.
Yes. But I would have watched this with my grandma, yes. And I would say anyone in like the late teens, I would say 17 and over, could totally watch this movie and probably have a lot of fun doing it.
I think so, yeah. Same with Unforgiven. If you're over 17, even over 25, and you want to kind of sink your teeth into a Western status, either one of these 2 movies will help you do that.
Great introductions. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so those are our movies for the week. It was great having a Western-themed episode, and really excited for the continued growth of this show. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If this is even your first time, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much. We ask everyone to subscribe, rate, and review our show. It really, really helps us. We do have a new review that we are very excited to read on air. It says, At the Movies, a fun listen where John and Vee review movies from years past. Their conversations are a blend of nostalgia as they reflect on the times they first saw them, with anecdotes of present-day perspective where film has advanced and global topics have evolved. There are movie buffs whose enthusiasm for the industry can be felt in each episode. I can't wait to hear what they'll introduce next. My movie list is growing. Yes, we hope.
I love that. That's a great way to end that review. My movie list is growing. I love that.
Our goal has been fulfilled.
Yes, it has.
So that was by Morgan. Thank you so much, Morgan. Really, really appreciate
Thank you, Morgan.
The beautifully written review. And we encourage everyone, it's so helpful. Please write a review, even if it's short. If you don't think you're great at writing, no worries at all. Don't be scared. We've said before, it could be 2 sentences, and that still helps.
Absolutely, yes. Anybody that feels like writing a little review. We're here for it.
And if you have any ideas of movies you'd like, suggestions or movies that you'd like us to cover, please feel free to reach out to us. We are at Movies You Missed Pod and all of the social media, and at gmail.com. That is our email as well. So feel free to get in contact with us if you had any ideas.
Absolutely. We are all ears for movie recommendations, good or bad. If you think it's a terrible movie, send it our way. We might actually like it.
John might like it. Sorry.
I do like my terrible movies. No, it's fine. It works.
No, there are a ton of movies that are so terrible they're good that are on my list. So.
Yeah. Batman Forever is going on my list. It's gonna have to at some point.
I'll put Batman Mask of the Phantasm as a counterpoint.
Oh, there you go. Nice. So a few weeks ago, we had a couple suggestions from our listeners to drop the names of the movies we would be doing the following week. And since it's Father's Day coming up, we've chosen Father's Day type themes. I've chosen Big Fish, directed by Tim Burton, starring Ewan McGregor. And V, what did you choose?
I picked one of my all-time favorite Harrison Ford movies and what I think is the best of the series, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
With my pick of Big Fish, you can watch that on Netflix, or if you have that on DVD, Blu-ray, or 4K, which I will be watching my 4K copy of.
And Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is available on Amazon Prime as well as Paramount Plus. Also available to rent from Apple TV for $3.99.
Fantastic. So yeah, if you feel like diving into one of those, one is a very fun film, the other is also very fun, but might give you a little bit of a cry moment. You never know.
Yes, both great father figure films, and thought it was just really appropriate for the upcoming holiday.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it.
To wrap our episode, we always like to end with, film is a form of art, and in art, every opinion is valid. Except if you think
Christoph Waltz deserved the Best Supporting Actor for Django Unchained over Tommy Lee Jones in Lincoln.
Ooh, he was amazing in Lincoln.
100% amazing. Christoph Waltz did not need a second Oscar that quickly.
No, that's a good point, actually, because he definitely deserved it for Inglourious Basterds.
Hands down, incredible performance in Inglourious Basterds.
Yes.
That is my favorite Tarantino film. And yeah, I really was hoping Tommy Lee Jones would take an Oscar for Lincoln. He was so fantastic.
He was, and just overall fantastic movie, but he was great in it. Yeah.
Indeed.
Good take. I agree with you.
All right, there we go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening in, and hope to have you join us again next week.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much for all the reviews, all the listens, the downloads, and the interaction on social media.
And until next week, take care.
Cheers, everybody.